And so again, we are recording it. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining this important event this morning. We're going to be having a few speakers from the Technical Standards and Safety Authority. We're also going to hear from John Ginnack from the Hawkins-Ginnack Foundation, and also from the Brockville Fire Department, Fire Chief David Lazenby. So I'm going to introduce each speaker, and then we'll have time for questions, and then we have a presentation of some alarms that follow the questions. So I think I've covered all my important notes here. Thanks again. We're running this carbon monoxide campaign in Kingston and Brockville, Gananoque, Smith Falls, Perth, and the surrounding areas. And we're going to speak to, all of our speakers are going to speak more about the campaign and the important initiative of carbon monoxide safety. So our first speaker is Bonnie Rose, and she's the President and Chief Executive Officer of the TSSA, or the Technical Standards and Safety Authority. And I will spotlight her, and she'll come up on our screen so we can have her say a few remarks. Thanks, and over to you, Bonnie.
I hate it when I do that. I muted myself. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our virtual carbon monoxide safety event. First and foremost, I would like to thank the group of safety experts who are involved with our event today. Brockville Fire Chief David Lazenby, John Ginnack from the Hawkins-Ginnack Foundation for CO Education, TSSA's own Stu Seaton, Investigators of Fuel Safety, and John Ward from First Alerts. I'm really glad to be here today with this group of individuals, all of whom are so incredibly dedicated to public safety. TSSA is Ontario's provincial regulator for fuel safety, so I'm particularly honored to be here today as we join forces with like-minded, focused safety partners. This event is another gratifying reflection of TSA's mantra and recognition that safety is a shared responsibility. As TSSA transitions towards becoming a modernized outcome-based regulator, our focus is on safety outcomes, and our goal is to use our expertise and strong partnerships to achieve positive safety outcomes for the people of Ontario. We use data to understand risk and to shape our approach to safety oversights. Data informs how we develop programs, such as a carbon monoxide public education campaign, to ensure we target risks and can reduce harm. Our mission at TSSA is to enhance safety in Ontario, where people live, work, and play. To do this, it's often a matter of teamwork. That means working with other safety partners like fire and emergency services to manage incidents as they occur and to learn from them. We want to find ways to prevent and reduce the likelihood of incidents repeating themselves in the future. Some of the ways TSSA aims to reduce accidents is by registering contractors and certifying tradespeople who install and service equipment. Equipment is safe, but only when it is installed and maintained by workers who are current with all safety codes and standards and are aware of the proper safety procedures and precautions. In addition, TSSA develops public safety programs such as this one are working together in our community Think Safe public education campaign. We aim to bring attention to potentially harmful situations in which human behavior is a primary root cause of serious life-threatening incidents. Today, we are talking about carbon monoxide exposure. In Ontario, more than 65% of all injuries and deaths due to carbon monoxide have occurred in homes due to a lack of regular maintenance of fuel-burning appliances. While Ontario is among the safest regions in Canada, TSSA is fully committed to continually raising awareness of potentially safety risks and ways to prevent them. Thank you for being part of this discussion today. This campaign is one of many. Working together with our safety partners, our goals are clear. We want to raise people's awareness of the risks associated with carbon monoxide in people's homes and enhance their understanding of the actions they can take to protect themselves and their families. The safety approach is straightforward. Inspections of fuel-burning appliances by TSSA certified fuel technicians and regular testing of certified CO alarms. The campaign will run for 2 weeks from March 15th to 30th in various communities across Eastern Ontario. Residents can expect to receive life-saving details about carbon monoxide exposure delivered directly to their mailboxes and through advertising and local media. I'd like to thank Brockville Fire Chief David Lazenby and the Hawkins-Gignac Foundation for CO Education and First Alert for their support in kicking off this important community safety initiative. A special thanks to all members of fire services in Brockville and beyond for their tireless efforts in keeping our residents safe, in all ways, carbon monoxide included. My hope is that this campaign heightens awareness in your community and influences behaviors that will ultimately save lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. That was Bonnie Rose. She's the President and Chief Executive Officer of TSSA, or Technical Standards and Safety Authority. And before I hand it over to the Brockville Fire Chief, I just want to note that there are a number of fire departments and chiefs represented here today from North Grenville, Smiths Falls, Lanark Highlands, Elizabethtown, Kittley, Perth, and then of course Brockville. So we weren't able to have all of them speak today, but I think their presence shows how important it is to TSSA, to all fire departments, particularly in the region where we're launching this campaign and running this campaign. So now I'm going to hand it over to the Brockville Fire Chief, David Lazenby, and he's going to share his remarks.
Thank you, Alexandra. Good afternoon. On behalf of the City of Brockville and the Brockville Fire Department, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank them for their attendance today. Thank you to TSSA and First Alert Canada for their tremendous efforts in supporting and coordinating these events all across Eastern Ontario in support of public safety. And I'd like to pay tribute to John Gignac and the Hawkins-Gignac Foundation for their lobbying and continued campaigning. We'll never know just how many lives have been saved because of the legislation that came into play because of their tireless efforts. I know it was born from tragedy, John, but please know that the work that you and your team have done is a marvellous tribute to Laurie and her family. As for any residents living locally, I want you to know that in the last 5 years, we've had over 230 carbon monoxide related calls. Fortunately, there's been no lives lost in that time, but we'll never know how many lives could have been lost, may have been lost, if they hadn't had early detection and warning because of the carbon monoxide alarms that are now legislation and that were brought into being because of the work of the Hawkins-Gignac Foundation. You know, and keeping your family safe is a shared responsibility. We're here to respond to emergencies, not just the Brockville Fire Department, but all the fire departments that are on this call today. But it's a homeowner's job to make sure that they have working smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms. Without them, you're putting your family at risk. Also, make sure that you have a TSSA certified technician check your fuel burning appliances annually. Make sure that you install and test your smoke alarms and your carbon monoxide alarms at least twice a year. It's the law and your life may depend on it. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you very much. That was the Brockville Fire Chief, David Lazenby. And I listed some of the fire departments before he spoke, and I'll list some of them again. So we've obviously got the Brockville Fire Department here. And there's some others I didn't mention. So there's Lanark Highlands, Edwardsburg Cardinal, Prescott, and that's in addition to North Grenville, Smith Falls, Elizabethtown, Kittley, and Perth as well. So thank you to everybody who's here supporting this from the fire departments in the eastern part of Ontario. Now we're going to ask John Gignac to speak. He's with the Hawkins-Gignac Foundation, and I think his remarks will, he'll share his story and you'll understand his role in this important initiative.
Thank you, Alexandra. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to participate on this panel today. I want to thank Chief Lazenby and Bonnie Rose from TSSA for hosting this virtual event. We are all here to help Brockville area residents stay safe from the risks of carbon monoxide. For me, the issue of carbon monoxide safety is very personal. As a firefighter with the Brantford Fire Department for 34 years, I responded to countless emergencies, both fire and carbon monoxide related. However, none of them prepared me for the loss of 4 of my family members in December of 2008 from carbon monoxide poisoning. My niece Lori Hawkins, an OPP officer in Woodstock, her husband Richard, and their 2 children, Cassandra and Jordan, all died when a block chimney vent forced deadly CO from their gas fireplaces to seep back into their home. They did not have a carbon monoxide alarm. I know what you're thinking. As a firefighter, I should have made sure they had a CO alarm. And you're right. That still haunts me to this day. But you know what? I didn't have one either. Back in 2008, there wasn't much awareness of carbon monoxide and the deadly consequences of this poisonous gas. That horrible accident inspired me to create the Hawkins-Janak Foundation for Carbon Monoxide Education, both to honor Lori's memory and to do my best to make sure that no other family ever has to endure the suffering that my family has had to endure, especially from something so preventable. Since its inception, the foundation has been committed to public education and awareness campaigns right across the country. We will not stop until every Canadian is protected from the silent killer. As you may know, there are reasons carbon monoxide is called the silent killer. Humans can't smell it, see it, or taste it. A working CO alarm is the only way to detect the poisonous gas. In this country, there are hundreds of emergency room visits due to non-fatal exposure to carbon monoxide each year, and more of that than 50 reported deaths due to CO. These are senseless losses of life that can be prevented by homeowners who take 2 simple steps. Have all your fuel burning appliances inspected and maintained every year by a TSSA certified technician. And number 2, install an approved CO alarm outside all sleeping areas and test and replace them per manufacturer's directions. My niece Lori served her entire career in the public safety. Even in her passing, she continues to bring focus on the love and resilience of family and attention to the important carbon monoxide alarms. I know Lori wants me, with your help, to continue carbon monoxide education. I can't change what happened to my family, but I can help make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. I often feel Lori tapping me on the shoulder or encouraging me to go on. This is Lori's legacy, and events like this, even virtual ones, are critical in raising and maintaining awareness of the dangers of carbon monoxide. Thanks again to Chief Lazenby and the entire Brockville Fire Department team for their great work, and to Bonnie Rose, Alexandra, and everyone at TSSA for their leadership and excellent direct mail campaign to educate homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you, John. John Janak from the Hawkins-Janak Foundation, and thanks for sharing that very personal but important story to help everybody understand how dangerous carbon monoxide is. I'm now going to ask Stu Seaton to speak. Sue is an investigator with the Technical Standards and Safety Authority, and like many of the fire departments here, is one of the people that has to respond to these incidents when they occur. Stu? I think you're on mute still. So we can't hear you, Stu. It was working at the beginning. I wonder if I stop spotlighting. Susie, you're not able to hear Stu, right?
No, I'm not, Alex.
Okay.
Frozen.
There we go.
Stu, we couldn't hear you, so.
Oh, here we go. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It's just a brief
my
pause.
computer froze up on me here.
Yes, well.
I apologize, folks. Anyhow, thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for joining us. First, I would like to say how much I appreciate the tremendous work of all the fire and emergency services people who work so hard every day to keep us all safe. Their efforts and all of the frontline workers out there over the past year demonstrate how committed they are to the health and safety of Ontarians. I also want to thank John and the Hawkins-Ginak Foundation for their endless hard work and passion they devote towards carbon monoxide safety. John's story is compelling and tragically emphasizes why we are here today. Carbon monoxide is a leading cause of accidental poisoning in Ontario every year, but together we can reduce the risk to our families and our loved ones. In my over 20 years of being involved in fuel safety, I have investigated far too many incidents that were all involving carbon monoxide. And unfortunately, the majority occurred in homes across Ontario, and most, if not all, could have been prevented through annual inspections by certified fuel technicians. Let me give you just one example, and it unfortunately gets repeated in all types of homes far too often. One that happened not long ago resulted in me being called out to investigate an incident at a permanent mobile home in the Trent Hills area. Initial indications were strongly pointing to it being a carbon monoxide related fatality. Sure enough, and sadly, that was the case. This permanent mobile home had an attached sunroom with the normal cottage type furniture, including a large outdoor table. The issue was that the vinyl tablecloth that hung down from the table partially covered the exhaust vent and air intake for the home's propane furnace. So when the deceased operated the furnace to dry out some damp cushions, the furnace, partially plugged by the tablecloth, produced significant amounts of carbon monoxide. In fact, over 4,000 ppm. Considered that sustained exposures, even at levels around 150 to 200 ppm, can cause serious health effects, including death. The gentleman was overcome in a matter of minutes and deceased at the scene. No carbon monoxide detector was found. Could this have been prevented? The simple answer is yes. Getting annual inspections and regular maintenance for fuel burning appliances, and that means all of them, not just your furnace, are essential to reduce risks like those that occurred in this incident. We all understand that our busy lives are challenging and that all of us try to do our best. So it's not about assigning blame. It's about providing vital carbon monoxide safety information and reminding people about safety routines that are critical to keeping them and their families safe. When it comes to carbon monoxide safety in our homes, we all have a role to play. It's a shared responsibility. I can tell you that my colleagues and I at TSSA come to work every day with one goal in mind: public safety. We'll do everything we can, but we need the help of Ontarians to beat the silent killer. It's about defense in depth. That is two things we all need to do. We need to get that annual inspection by TSSA certified technicians, and two, install your certified carbon monoxide alarms and replace them as indicated by the manufacturer. Campaigns like this one recognize the need to provide key safety information to residents. I am honored to be involved today and to work alongside individuals like Brockville Fire Chief David Lazenby and his department, John and his foundation, and of course, First Alert. Please look for crucial carbon monoxide safety materials that will be arriving in your mailboxes over the coming days. Thank you, and stay safe.
Thank you very much for that, Stu. So those are our speakers for this morning. We're going to take some questions, and after the questions, I hope everybody can stay on for a few minutes because we have an important presentation of fire alarms. I do also want to acknowledge, in addition to all the guests here today, and I listed the fire departments, and I realized I missed a couple more. In fact, Merrickville Fire Department and Holland Rideau Lake Fire Department, and also Loyalist Township. So they have also joined us today. And we have John Ward has joined us. He's a technical expert from First Alert, and they make carbon monoxide alarms, and they've been an important partner in helping us with this campaign in Kingston and Brockville and surrounding areas. So thanks for joining us, John. And what I'm going to do now is see if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask of the speakers, and then we'll go to the presentation. So I see hand up. I'm going to ask Hetty from the Brockville recorder to unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, thank you.
Okay, I just want to ask, do we have any historical information as to whether or not carbon monoxide deaths and injuries are occurring more frequently, less frequently? Do we have any sort of trend, 5-year, 3-year trend of statistics?
So from our point of view at Technical Standards and Safety Authority, and I'll see if the fire chiefs want to answer after, we track the ones related specifically to fuels. Thankfully, they're still low enough. I would say, like, statistically, it's hard to monitor a trend, but we still average in this province, just from fuels related, 1 to 2 carbon monoxide fatalities a year on average. You could, on one respect, it might look like it went down because in 2014 there was a high number of deaths. I believe it was 8 deaths, and I could follow up with that exact number. But with still very small numbers in the population like that, I would say it's hard to monitor trends. I think also the mandatory law for carbon monoxide alarms came into place a few years ago, but I think you're just going to start to see the impacts of that, after the first few years of it being in place. So hopefully we'll definitely see stronger trends in the future. I don't know if anybody else, John, your hand's up, so I'm going to assume you want to answer that question, and I'll hand it to you.
I don't like to comment on statistics because we really haven't got a firm grip on them, and I don't think they've had enough time since the law has passed to actually accumulate statistics to give us an honest answer. But I just feel that since the law has passed, to save one life has been well worth it.
Thank you.
I do have a question for TSSA.
I'm just going to ask you to hang on to it for a second because I had someone else, Patricia Lima, with your hand.
Sure.
Hi. Hi. My name is Patricia, and I'm a firefighter at the Athens Fire Department. I'm pretty new to fire prevention, and perhaps my question is simple. But in regards to the cost for the resident to obtain the certification of the fuel appliances and the CO alarm, is this something that the residents has to pay for, or is something that they can seek help? Because I see that I'm working pretty hard in the campaign, and I think that's so important. But I think the cost might be something that prevent them to do the right thing. Could you comment on that?
John, did you want to, you have your hand up. Is that because you wanted to provide a comment? Or John Ford, sorry.
I was going to provide a comment on trends, but not prices.
Sorry. Okay. So I think it's a good segue to when we're finished the questions, because we do have a donation of some alarms, carbon monoxide alarms. It is a homeowner's responsibility to have their appliances maintained. Obviously, if you're in a rental, it's responsibility, in the building of the landlord and management of the building, and to also have carbon monoxide alarms, depending on whether you're the homeowner or you're a renter. So hopefully that answers that question. And John Ward, did you want to share something on carbon monoxide related incidents?
Well, I was, because they were asking about trends, a trend that has popped up in the last few years is carbon monoxide issues due to cars running in garages. They're making cars so quiet these days that people will bring their cars into a garage and or start them and not realize they're running, and then go about their business. And if it's an attached garage, you can fill your house with carbon monoxide. And again, the reason that is relatively new is because of how quiet cars are becoming. And that's all I wanted to comment on trends.
Thank you for that. So John Janak, you had a question. You look like you're frozen for me. Can you hear me, John? No, I should have not put him off, because now he's he's frozen. I think he's assuming he's frozen for everybody else, unfortunately. I guess I would, John Ward, since you were speaking, just wanted to ask a little bit. Oh, John Janex just rejoined the meeting. Hi, John.
Hi, this computer just kicked me off. I have a question for TSSA.
Okay.
You have said you are working with multiple stakeholders on your public education campaigns. How many fire departments and households are you targeting in Eastern Ontario? And do you see this program continuing in other areas in Ontario in the near future?
Yes, thank you. So we at TSSA do carbon monoxide education essentially year round. And so right now we're working in the communities, as I mentioned, Kingston, Brockville, Gananoque, Smith Falls, Perth, and the surrounding areas, with some advertising of this event and, most importantly, information mailed directly to households. And that information is going to about 140,000 households in these communities. And amazingly, 26 fire departments represent all of those communities. And, you know, over the past few days, we've had great engagement from all the fire departments. I think this is a really important issue for everybody. So thanks for that question. And I was just going to ask, I think, one final question before we go to the presentation, because it'll be a good way to hand it off, is John, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about alarms and how they're changing in the technology that's out there today.
There's two main new technologies in smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. For new home construction now, any new house that has been built from 2015 until now also has to have a visual indicator of both smoke and carbon monoxide, which is a real bonus for those people with hearing impairments. Another change that's relatively new is smoke alarms are now required in bedrooms. And bedroom is the second most likely place for someone to die, next to the kitchen, because of a fire. And so what people have to understand is that if people in the household are sleeping with their bedroom door closed and a fire starts in that bedroom, by the time the hallway smoke alarm sounds, it could be too late for who's ever in the bedroom. So if you have a house that has a smoke alarm in the bedroom, that's great. If your house was made before that requirement came into the code, then we really suggest that people put a smoke alarm inside each bedroom, especially if they're sleeping with the bedroom door closed. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is we now have technology that enables a smoke alarm to alert your smart device should a smoke or carbon monoxide alarm go off while either you're not at home or even when you're home. And this has advantages to the hearing impaired if they can't hear a standard smoke alarm, but they carry around a smart device with them, and they have a smoke or CO event, then it can alert their smart device and they can react accordingly. One question I had for Stuart was, he mentioned that when most people think of carbon monoxide, they think of a furnace malfunctioning or a furnace issue. But there's a lot of other things that can cause carbon monoxide, and I just wondered what some of the most common ones he has seen would be.
Well, that's a good question, John. In a real short answer, it's not just about your furnace. Furnaces, they combust fuel, and any appliance that combusts fuel will produce carbon monoxide. But we have to look on a broader scope than that. I would say barbecues, boilers, unit heaters, cars, generators, anything that produces that uses a fuel, burns a fuel, will produce carbon monoxide. So it's not just about one particular appliance. It's about all of the devices out there that process fuel and how we go about using them. A good example of that is when we have a power outage and we hear of carbon monoxide related incidents where a generator has been used indoors, or if we have a no heat situation and somebody has brought in a barbecue to provide some heat to the home. This is not about how the appliance works. It's about how the appliance is utilized. So there's a shared responsibility, both making sure that the fuel appliance works correctly and is checked by a certified technician, and also where that appliance is used. Does that answer your question, John?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for that. So I don't see any more questions, and I'm going to ask John Jinak, who's going to make a presentation of carbon monoxide alarms now to Fire Chief Lazenby on behalf of First Alert Canada.
At this time, I'd like to draw attention to the donation of First Alert carbon monoxide alarms being presented to Chief Lazenby. They were generously donated by First Alert Canada in support of this education blitz. Brockville firefighters will provide them to families in the community who might not otherwise be in a position to purchase an alarm themselves, especially in light of COVID-19. Thank you, First Alert. I'm happy to present them to Chief Lazenby on your behalf.
And Chief Lazenby, if you're still with us, I'm just trying to get you up on screen here. You're good, you're muted.
Thank you. I'd like to thank John, and I'd like to thank First Alert Canada for the wonderful donation of these life-saving devices. We can't thank you enough. And I'd like to thank Bonnie and Alexandra and the TSSA for organising this event. I think everybody on the call appreciates the importance of this, and I hope that it's the first of many in the years to come. So thank you on behalf of the Brockville Fire Department, the City of Brockville, and on behalf of my peers, the fire chiefs in Leeds and Grenville. Thank you all very much.
All right, and thank you. Thanks again to everybody who joined us this morning, from TSSA, from all of the fire departments that joined us this morning, and John Jinak and from the Hawkins Jinak Foundation, and John Ward from First Alert, and for the donation of the carbon monoxide alarms. So that ends this morning. We're certainly available to speak to anybody and answer questions or provide facts after the event today, and I hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye now.